Over the last 30 years, China has become synonymous with mixed doubles success. In those 3 decades, China has won almost half the titles at these 6 major championships: the All England, the End of Year Finals, the Asia Championships, the World Championships, the Asian Games, and the Olympics. Within those Chinese champions, there have been pairs that are regarded amongst badminton fans as some of the greatest to ever play: Lu Yong and Gufei, Zheng and Gao Ling, and Zhang Nan and Zhao Yunlei being 3 prime examples. However, if you were to ask who is the greatest ever Chinese mixed pair, it's highly likely that badminton fans will give you the name of a different pair.
Siwei and Huang, Yaqiong.
Zheng Siwei and Wang Yaqiong are, to put it bluntly, the most dominant pair in mixed doubles history. I could sit here and reel off everything they've achieved, but that would take me some time. Instead, on screen you will see an Instagram post by the voice of badminton, Jill Clark, who laid out pretty much every incredible thing they achieved. And as you can see, they aren't just numerous, but absolutely mind-blowing. Like I said, they were a truly remarkable pair, and with their very recent retirement, many badminton fans have been left wondering what their secret was. Now, for most, the answer to that seems painfully obvious. It is China being China. When I said right at the start China has become synonymous with mixed doubles success, that was but a fraction of the full picture, as ever since China joined the BWF in 1981, they have been the team to beat, the world's best badminton nation. To showcase this clearly to you, let's take those same 6 major competitions I mentioned earlier. Over the past 30 years, across all 5 disciplines in badminton, there have been 550 champions. Of those 550, 251 of them have come from China. That's a staggering 45.6%. Almost half of all champions at 6 of badminton's biggest events over 30 years have come from China. And quick side note, whilst I haven't double checked, my guess would be if I was to expand my scope to China's entire 44-year history within the BWF, then that percentage would likely not change. In fact, my guess would be it would increase. With that sort of dominance, combined with mixed doubles becoming a part of the Badminton Olympic programme in 1996, thus making it far more important, well, is it any wonder that the nation to dominate was China? Well, that short and succinct explanation does cover it for most of China's dominant mixed pairs. Most except for Zheng Siwei and Wang Yaqiong. Those 2 did things a little differently. And it's that difference that I want to get into in this video, doing so in the only way I know how, by telling a story. However, with the language barrier combined with the fact that China has kept the vast majority of its training secret, to tell this accurately I'm going to need some help. And lucky for me, and for you, I have just the right person. Someone who was there from the beginning.
My name is Cristian Luque.
It's mid-2018, June to be precise, and the Chinese badminton team are having one of their usual training days. In 6 weeks they are set to compete in the World Championships, which will be held in Nanjing, China. For Zheng Siwei and Wang Yaqiong, they might have only been partnered since the end of 2017, but already they were seen as big gold medal hopes. This was because not only had they done extremely well in their previous partnerships, with Zheng Siwei reaching the final of the World Championships the year before, but in their first 4 tournaments of 2018 they had only failed to reach the final once. And one of those finals was at badminton's most prestigious event, the All England. With that in mind, plus the World Championships being on home soil, preparations were fierce, the training tough and regimented. It certainly wouldn't be a time for any change, let alone a big one. Yet, on this particular day in June, that's exactly what happens, as mixed doubles coach Yang Ming has brought in a strength and conditioning coach from Spain, Cristian Luque. Already this might seem like an odd appointment, but what makes it even more so is that not only had the Chinese badminton team never employed someone outside of China before, but Cristian had no experience in badminton either.
I have a bachelor degree in sports science and physical education, a master degree in high performance sports, and also a postgraduate in injury rehabilitation. When I finished the university, after the bachelor degree, I started to work in a tennis academy. It's an international tennis academy in Barcelona, and I was working there from 2008 until 2016. And then in 2016, the academy contacted me, and they told me that they are going to open a tennis academy in China, in Nanjing, and they want me to go like the head coach there. It was a big project with young tennis players. I accepted and I went to Nanjing in 2016, and I stayed there for 1 year and a half. I think it was at the beginning of 2018. I had a friend who was working with me in the tennis academy, and he started to work in the national Chinese team, badminton team. He contacted me and he said, look, there are some coaches from the mixed doubles. They are trying to find a strength and conditioning coach for the players. And since I know you, because you have been working with me, I recommend you. And then we start talking about the possibility, because they never had any foreigner before until this moment. I just started to work with them 5-6 weeks before the World Championship in 2018. And then, yeah, it was a very big moment.
On that first day in training, as Zheng, Siwei and Wang Yaqiong had only just come back from the Asia Championships, plus the fact they didn't know each other, Cristian felt it best to focus more on some easy recovery exercises. A decision which not only gave Cristian immediate insight into the Chinese way of training, but almost got him fired.
My approach was, okay, I don't know you. I don't know what you have been doing for before I arrived here, and then you arrive from 2 competitions. This is the first day you start to train, and then we are gonna do some recovery, some easy exercises just to know each other. In this moment, the badminton team only had another fitness coach with the rest of the team, and I have just these 4 players. The rest of the team, we were training together in a gym, and they were doing like normal training, like they didn't arrive from the competition like strength, heavy strength and all this kind of, and we were doing completely different. When I finished the training, I went home, and then I received a call from my friend who recommended to the team, and he said, look, the coach called me. He said that I should tell you that badminton players don't train that way.
Obviously, as you already know, Cristian wasn't fired on day one, but following that phone call, he did talk with the coaches to explain why the session was like that. The coaches understood, yet being so close to the World Championships, didn't want to change anything.
Also, the coaches, it was at the beginning, they told me, and then since they say, okay, we are very close to the World Championship, we don't want to change all our training, that I understood. We prefer to keep our training the same until World Championship, and then we will see how it's going after that.
Throughout those preparations for the World Championships, Cristian continued to observe, run sessions, and did his best not to change anything. However, there was one thing that Cristian did change, one thing that he was adamant about: the warm-ups.
The thing I changed was the warm-up, because usually how they do the warm-up is all the team do the same warm-up, and it's like they do like a circle, and they sit and they start from passive stretching and then some mobility and then finish running, and then I say, okay, the first thing I want to change is this, because we know we have the knowledge that static stretching before the training or competition is not the best, and then also it should be individualized for them according to the injuries they have, according to what they are gonna do later. Like the warm-up has to be part of the training, cannot be something that they just do always the same, has to be adapted according many aspects. And this was the first thing that we changed. That also was not easy, because they have like routine every day. One player was in the middle and all the team was following them, doing the same routine every day.
Cristian is a huge believer in the importance of warm-ups. At the 2023 coaching conference held during that year's World Championships, he did a seminar on it. And it was within one of these warm-up drills that he inadvertently started a trend that took the badminton world by storm.
Huang Yaqiong, we started to do some like reaction with the tennis balls, some coordination just before every practice, because after talking with her, we say, okay, since you are closest to the net, the time of reaction is shorter than And then it's very important for you when you start the match to be very active and reactive to the shuttle. Then I remember when we started to do this, they were looking, okay, what is he doing with the tennis balls on? This is badminton, this is not. And then I remember very clear, after maybe 4 or 5 years, I think maybe 2022, 23, we were in I think it was Malaysia Open, and we were doing the warm-up before the competition. And then the coach came to me and he say, look around. And then we look around and we're like 8-10 pairs doing this kind of exercises before the preparation. And it was very, very, very funny.
That is quite a nice and fun story, but it should give you some insight into Cristian's training philosophy. Cristian firmly believes in the individualization of training, being specific towards the player and their needs. And you might be right in thinking this is something that would already be a part of any high-performance setup, especially in 2018, and especially in one that has been as successful as China within badminton. Yet, it wasn't. The approach to badminton training in the Chinese team was, at that point, very rudimentary and basic.
This is the first thing that shocked me. Is like, okay, I'm starting to work here in the best team of the world. I expect like having like a lot of fitness coaches and medical staff, physiotherapists, everything. And they just had one fitness coach apart of me. Many coaches were doing the physical training for the athletes. How it works is like the head coach is who made almost all the decisions about everything. The fitness coach are like complementary to the coaches to do some work, some training that they don't have the knowledge to do it, but everything they do has to be through the coach. The coach has to agree or not what they do.
Despite Cristian being shocked by the Chinese setup, he also respected it. He knew he couldn't just come in and change everything, and he didn't want to do that either.
I said before, I'm the first foreigner. China has a lot of success. I cannot arrive there and say, okay, everything you do is wrong, and I'm doing everything right. And then if there are things that I know that I cannot touch or change, I need to understand what they do, these kind of things. I need to respect this.
It was through this approach, getting the players and coaches to understand his reasoning, that Cristian was able to earn more and more trust. That and the small fact that at those World Championships, it was an all-China mixed doubles final.
Of course, the World Championship, I can say it's impossible that there was any effect of my training after just a few weeks. And I can say that was very lucky, because maybe if the result was not good, I will not keep working there in this moment, because it was just a few weeks, and if they have bad results, they would say, okay.
That World Championship result was quite a factor in Cristian continuing as the strength and conditioning coach. But truth be told, even before then, he had started to earn the trust and belief from both players and coaches, especially Zheng Siwei. Ever since the first day, Cristian and Siwei formed a connection, and that connection had grown and would continue to grow, something you will see clear as day as this story continues. Cristian attests this connection to the fact that Zheng Siwei likes to approach things differently.
Zheng also was very happy because he's like different. He's not the traditional Chinese player where he just follow the rules and without thinking more about that, but he is the opposite. He always question everything. And then when he found something different, that because always when I train them, I try to explain the reason why we do everything. Also for him, he felt comfortable doing in that way. We have many argues between us because I like these kind of players because they question and they ask the reasons why we do the things.
Following those World Championships, to put it bluntly, Zheng Siwei and Huang Yaqiong utterly dominated the mixed doubles landscape. For the rest of 2018, they played 7 more tournaments, reaching the finals of all of them, only losing once. And within those tournaments was another huge major title, the Asian Games. Heading into 2019, this tidal wave of mixed doubles madness didn't show any signs of stopping. They won all 3 of the Super 1000s, amongst which was the All England. They went undefeated at the Sudirman Cup, helping China win it yet again. They successfully retained their World Championship crown, and they finished the year by winning the World Tour Finals. Since Cristian had joined the team, Zheng and Huang had played 22 individual tournaments. Of those 22, they had reached 18 finals, winning 14 of them. A simply mind-blowing set of results. And it was these set of results that gave Zheng and Huang more say over their own training. And this in part gave Cristian a little more say too, something which he used.
I couldn't change everything from the beginning, but after they were getting good results, I was winning a little bit more power to make decisions from the side of the players and also from the side of the coaches. But there are many traditional things that they do it that was difficult to change, like the running. Only with Zheng was the first one to stop to do this kind of training because he had some, knee problems for a very long time, and after discussing with the coaches, we changed this.
Another injury issue that Zheng Siwei suffered in this period was to his wrist, and it was with that injury that gave birth to some of the most unique training of Zheng Siwei's. The theory behind these training sessions is interesting.
This is very funny because this was a period where he has a wrist injury. When someone is injured, there are many that he couldn't play, and then you need to find things to do during all this period, because I couldn't say, okay, we just train 2 hours and then he rests of the day. They want him to do some kind of activities all day. And then we had this kind of machine in the gym there in the National Training Center, and then I say, okay, we can use this because maybe it's not going to be a lot of improvement in many aspects, but it's going to be fun for him and it's going to help him to disconnect or be happy during this period that is difficult because he cannot play. And many of the videos are in this situation when they had injuries, and then we try to do different things.
So a lot of those videos that have gone viral that I was watching, some of them are just you trying to keep him doing something.
Exactly, and to keep the motivation and during these difficult periods. Yeah.
Despite the injury issues with Cristian's training and approach, which was becoming more influential the more time went on, Zheng and Huang were going from strength to strength. In fact, it's in 2019 where Zheng Siwei himself felt he was at his maximum power.
I remember always Zheng Siwei say his best, his peak in his career is 2019.
With all of this and the Tokyo Olympics just around the corner, it seemed implausible to suggest anyone but Zheng and Huang would win gold. But then...
On this Friday night, 35 million people now under lockdown.
Cities in China are on lockdown to stop the spread.
China's unprecedented quarantine as it tries to contain the coronavirus.
China has locked down travel in Wuhan, a city of 11 million people, as well as 2 other cities. And it's canceling major celebrations of the Chinese New Year in Beijing.
When this started was January 2020, and I remember one day we arrived to the training, so something is happening, we don't know what's happening, but there are many people in the hospital. We had like the national training base where all the sports trains together in Beijing, and then I was living in an apartment that was very close to there. This building was linked to their base. I just needed to cross one door, and then I went to training, and when I finished the training, went back, they closed this door. I couldn't leave.
As January turned into February, the COVID pandemic had truly gripped China, and with the heavy lockdown measures in place, it was a difficult time for the Chinese team. And with it being an Olympic year and tournaments still active, the Chinese team relocated to the city of Nottingham in England. Here, the Chinese team trained for the next 6 weeks or so in the build-up to the All England. However, with the COVID situation worsening and the UK set to be badly hit, worries spread throughout the team. For Zheng and Huang, that year's All England had been a disaster, suffering a shock second-round exit to the Dutch pairing of Robin Taberling and Selena Peake. On top of this, with the COVID pandemic worsening and the uncertainty of the Tokyo Olympics, it was a difficult time for them. With all of this, the China team decided that even though China was in full lockdown, returning was the best option.
Like few days after All England, they say, okay, everybody needs to go to China because we are gonna close the borders, and then you need to leave. You need to go back.
Following their return to China, no Chinese players would play competitively again until the Tokyo Olympics, a period of 1.5 years, a period in which the Chinese athletes would endure the toughest training of their lives.
Actually, it was the period where they trained more than ever. They never stopped to train, never. Actually, it was not very good for them. It was probably the worst period also because of the pandemic, because the training load was too high. They didn't know how long it's gonna take until this finish, and then no one know the proper planning. to do it, and they just load, and during this period they had many injuries because of that, and it was a tough period.
It was without this lack of a plan and the Chinese way of doing things, with training mainly dictated by the head coach, that the training volume and intensity got out of hand.
Intensities were always very high, but the amount of training without resting, because I don't know, maybe in 1.5 years that we were without competition, they rest 5 days. Actually, it was because like the GPS company provide us for GPS to use it during few months, and then I had the data, and then I remember one day I went to the coach and say, look, I think that they are training too much, and then they increase the risk of injury, we should control, blah, blah. But he completely ignored what I say. Wow. Yeah, and they were keeping, and then I explained to the players, and yeah, they had injuries after that. But
Cristian's words fell on deaf ears, but they would not go unfounded, as within less than a year, 2 of China's top stars would retire early due to injury issues, and Zheng Siwei was almost one of them. Throughout this period, Zheng Siwei was suffering from a multitude of injuries, with his knee being one of them. Luckily, due to Zheng having some say, he was able to get out of certain training sessions, namely the running sessions, a decision which, and I don't put this lightly, likely saved his career. However, throughout this lockdown period, like a number of others, Zheng Siwei also struggled mentally. Something which was made worse when, after almost a whole year with no competition, at the very last minute, the Chinese government withdrew the whole team from playing at the 3 Super 1000 events in Bangkok in January 2021.
I remember this period because the players were very happy because they have been there training for 1 year, not competing, and we were preparing, and they say no, no, you are not. And this was a very difficult moment for them. Also, for Huang and Zheng Siwei, they were in the top of the world. They were number one, and then the favorites to win, and then unknown if they are gonna play the Olympics, if not, and yeah, it was very tough.
Despite these difficult preparations at the Tokyo Olympics, once again the Chinese mixed team showed to everyone why they are the nation to beat, as it was an all-China final. However, unexpectedly, it wasn't Zheng and Wang who topped the podium, but their compatriots Wang Yilu and Wang Dongping, coincidentally another pair that Cristian was working with. I remember this being a rather surprising result at the time. However, there was a story behind this Olympics that not too many know of, a story which started just a few weeks before they flew to Tokyo.
Siwei, like 1 week before the Olympics, he pulled, no, it was more like 3 weeks, he pulled his muscle doing the smash. A preparation match they did in China against Wang Yilu and Dongping was the preparation for the Olympics, that they tried to simulate the conditions in Tokyo. During the warm-up of this match, he pulled his muscle. He was fine just a few days before the Olympics, but in the first match in the Olympics, he pulled again after one smash. And then he needed to use pain medication because it was very, very painful for him.
I'm gonna say, I mean, there's not really much you can do if he's pulled it literally in position.
No, you need time, yeah. And we didn't have time, yeah.
So the only thing you could do was painkillers, basically. Was there anything else?
Yeah, because in this moment, nothing else really, yeah.
For me, this is rather remarkable, as at those Olympic Games, both Chinese pairs were leagues above everyone else. I don't recall at the time ever thinking Zheng Siwei was hindered by such a major injury. But this just shows Zheng Siwei's tenacity and desire to win, and I think it also shows Wang Yaqiong's ability to work around issues and come up with solutions. The Chinese coaches, and Cristian too, this situation also highlighted an area they felt Zheng Siwei could improve on.
It's very funny because with his game, also one of the things that the coaches say, that when he's physically in the best conditions, he doesn't make smart decisions because he used his physicality. When he had these problems, he needed to change his game to adapt to this, and then he was playing very smart because he couldn't smash with the hit power, and the smash is one of the strongest tools he has. And we always say, yeah, when you are injured or you had some problem, you play better because you need to make a smarter decision.
This aside, the fact neither of these two ever made a big song or dance about this, even though you could say it cost them an Olympic gold, shows a lot about their character. But whilst they may not have shown just how devastating that Olympic loss was on the outside, inside was a different matter, and they would carry that with them over the coming months and into 2022. Between losing that Olympic final in Tokyo and the beginning of 2022, 4 major negative things had happened to Zheng and Huang. Firstly, they lost in the final of the Chinese National Games, a tournament which is also held every 4 years, and for Chinese athletes is seen on a similar level to the Olympics. Secondly, they lost in their opening match of that year's World Championships to a rather unknown pair from Hong Kong. Thirdly, Cristian had left the Chinese team as his contract had ended, and with the extremely tough Olympic preparations, he was mentally exhausted and needed time away. And finally, the Chinese coaches had lost confidence in them as a pair and had decided to temporarily split them up. Despite no longer being a part of the team though, Cristian had kept in touch with Zheng Siwei, trying to help out as much as he could, as a friend.
It's very difficult because they lost these 2 very important competitions, like the Olympics and the National Games, and then they lost. I think this losing was make the change or lose completely their confidence. After that, the team made the decision to separate them. I remember because always talking with them, I was joking with it, say, okay, you're gonna still be good, you don't need me, it's not gonna make the difference if the winning or losing, you win because you are really good. And then I say, I'm not going back. I decided to not go back.
This decision to not go back though wouldn't last long, as by chance Cristian turned on the TV to watch the All England, and what he saw worried him immensely.
Injuries to Zheng Siwei. Looks like his right knee with the strapping on is the problem.
But I remember it was All England where they played with different partners, and I saw Zheng with something protection in his knee, and I was thinking, okay, if he has a protection in his knee, is because he's in a very, very bad state. Because if not, he will never put anything there. 100%. And I talked to him and say, okay, why you were wearing this? And say, for the last few months I have having a very serious problem in my knee. I say, okay, tell me from 1 to 10 how much is the pain? Say 8. Yeah, and you say, but do you check with the doctor? Or you say, yeah, everything I did, it's not working. And then after he played maybe Germany, I don't know, it was before, but he played few tournaments, was not good, and then he wrote me and say, okay, I will never ask you if I don't really need, but I need you to come back with me because I'm in a very bad situation. And in this moment, he thought to retire because the situation was like injuries and change the partner, and yeah.
With his close friend talking of retirement and swayed by the fact the Chinese team were now located in Thailand, Cristian returned to help Siwei with his injury problems. But what he soon realised was that those injury problems were far worse than he could have ever imagined.
He never explained me how serious was his problem until I arrived there, because he never, if not Chinese culture, they are not very open to express like if they feel bad. It's very difficult for them to express or how bad they are. They don't like to show their weakness. And when I arrived there, it's okay. We need to see the problem. Do you did any checking with the doctor? What is the real problem? You say no. The problem say that it's not very big problem, but I say we need to know. And then I say, okay, if you want me to work with you, we need to go to the hospital and take a MRI and to see what is the real problem you have. And then we went to the hospital, and then the diagnostic was he has a partial rupture of the ACL and then another ligament affected.
This is the full and official diagnosis from Zheng Siwei's scan on his knee, and even if you aren't an expert, you can tell it isn't good. Zheng Siwei had a partial tear and a sprain to 2 major ligaments in his knees. A few chondromyelacia at the tibiofemoral and patellofemoral compartment means there is mild cartilage damage in both the main weight-bearing area of the knee joint and the area where the kneecap meets the thigh bone, and joint effusion is basically a liquid buildup inside the knee. A rather devastating diagnosis. Even the partial tear of the ACL alone is something that would require 3 months of recovery time. It's no surprise then that on seeing these results, Cristian immediately told Siwei he must stop all training and competing. Zheng Siwei though had other ideas.
And then I say, okay, you need to stop to play, you cannot play. He say, no, it's impossible, I cannot stop to play. Then I say, okay, we are gonna to try to do some approach. You cannot train too much, we are gonna focus on rehabilitation, and then you will keep compete and we will see how it's working.
The approach from Cristian from this point forward was all about injury prevention and management of the issue. This meant lots of drills outside the court, many hours on the treatment table, and limiting on-court time to about 20 to 30 minutes a day.
His condition was very bad. He was training maybe 20-30 minutes every day, just playing.
It was after Cristian returned that Zheng Siwei and Wang Yaqiong were repartnered, and what is absolutely incredible to me, with all this context given, is that with literally one knee and minimal training, Zheng and Wang picked up where they had left off pre-Tokyo. Seven tournaments in a row, 7 titles in a row, all done on 20 to 30 minutes on-court training. What was key in this happening, outside of some luck his injury didn't worsen, was the heavy focus on recovery.
He needed to do a lot of treatment with the doctor, spend a lot of time with the doctor and do exercise before the competition, after the competition. They played the final with the Thailands. There was a very intense match, like 3 sets. And after that, we had like 2 days or 3 days before the next competition, and there were many tournaments together. We just focused on recovery and tried to play as much as possible outside of the competition.
With this combination of minimal yet smart training, combined with a lot of recovery work and treatment, Zheng Siwei and Wang Yaqiong were once again the best pair in the world. Quite literally. Yet, following those World Championships for a second time, Cristian left. He had done what he was asked to do. He had helped Zheng Siwei regain both his fitness and his confidence, and now he wished to be reunited with his girlfriend. However, it wasn't long before once again, Zheng Siwei came asking for Cristian's help.
Of course, after I finished this period, they asked me, okay, Zheng told me, okay, I want you to help me for my last Olympics.
I want you to help me for my last Olympics. It was a plea that Cristian couldn't refuse, not only because they had achieved everything together, with only the Olympic gold missing, but because over the past 5 years they had become incredibly close friends. But Cristian knew that this time things would have to be different. He would need to have more control over Zheng Siwei's entire training plan.
I'm gonna go back, but the condition is gonna be this: I'm going working for you, not for the team.
Just for Zheng Siwei.
Exactly. Yeah. This was the condition. They say I was working for him, not with the team. And then almost during this period, of course, we have the respect relationship with the coach, but not working together. I was doing my work, of course, always explaining the things, or if he has any questions, no problem. But just follow. Everything was following what I say to him. He was not doing anything outside the court without me.
So it was only on court that the coaches would have their say.
Yeah, but actually also, as I said before, during this period, we planned together everything on the court also.
But you and the coaches had more of a relationship.
But not directly with the coach, with Zheng. And then Zheng was with the coach.
This increased autonomy over Zheng Siwei's training was green-lighted, mainly because Zheng Siwei himself held far more power within the team at this point, but also Cristian had the proven track record that he knew better than anyone how to get Zheng Siwei ready for the biggest competitions. Another aspect that led to this decision was that there was a slow change in how players within the Chinese team trained. The Chinese badminton team has always been funded by the national governing body, but on top of this, the provinces which make up China can, and often do, supplement this funding for players from their province. It was actually through this setup that Cristian was first brought into the national team to help the mixed doubles players, as Zheng Siwei, Wang Yaqiong and Wang Yilu were all from the same province. In 2023, there were a number of players, Shi Yuqi and Li Shifeng in the men's singles for example, that had their own teams. You could see it as these players being somewhat independent within the national setup. Interestingly, this is what the Korean Badminton Association hinted at doing following the Yaqiong situation. And with this in mind, you'd be right to think that Cristian was working with both Zheng Siwei and Wang Yaqiong. Well, in the beginning, that wasn't the case.
In Thailand, I was not working with Huang Yaqiong because, as I said, when I left after the Tokyo, she started to work with the fitness coach of the national team, the one who always traveled with them and stayed for many years. I think he almost started at the same time than me. She didn't want to change, and then when I came back, I was working just for Zheng.
When this changed can be pinpointed precisely. It was following the 2023 All England.
Second All England title.
Even though Zheng Siwei and Wang Yaqiong won this final, earning themselves their second All England title, Zheng Siwei wasn't pleased with the performance. Not his own, Wang Yaqiong's. He felt that Wang Yaqiong was not in good shape and was struggling to retrieve Seo Seung-jae's drop shots effectively.
I remember it was All England 2023. They won this competition. After they came back, Zheng came to me and said, "Okay, I'm not happy with the performance of her. I think the problem is in the physical condition. If you see this match, they play with the final with the Koreans, and I think the Seo made like 20 drop shots to her, or I don't know, not 20, but a lot of drop shots."
Wang Yaqiong's lack of physical condition was something that Cristian also noticed, saying later in my interview that when compared with the All England final a year later, that the difference was huge.
After they came back, even if they won the competition, you could see in some matches, like it was the semi-finals and finals, that she was not in the best shape. But for me, it was very, very clear. It was very easy for me to see when she was in a good shape or not good shape. You can see the difference between 2023 and 2024 All England.
Even though Cristian knew Wang Yaqiong wasn't in great shape and that he knew what he could do to help, he also knew that the relationship between coach and player is hugely important. And Wang Yaqiong had formed a close relationship with the national team's fitness coach ever since Cristian left after Tokyo. So a conversation was needed, compromises made.
And I say, okay, we need to arrive an agreement with her, because you cannot make the decision to say, okay, you are gonna work she's gonna work with me, but she's working with someone, and we need to discuss. And then he talked with her, and he say, okay, we're gonna do is gonna divide the training, and half of the week the training with me, and half of the week with the fitness coach.
Once that agreement was reached, Cristian devised a plan that had just one goal in mind: gold at the Paris Olympics. The road to the Paris Olympics was going to be a lot different from the road to the Tokyo Olympics just 3 years previous. Aside from the obvious, there wasn't a global pandemic in the way. This time Cristian was only training Zheng and Wang. Plus, he had far more say over what they did and didn't do, allowing him to plan much further in advance and with far more detail and individual focus on what Zheng Siwei and Wang Yaqiong would specifically need. And with that power, Cristian devised this training plan. A plan that would meticulously plot their training and goals for the 6-month period leading towards Paris. Now to you, this might just look like a load of numbers. Trust me, even after Cristian explained it to me, I still kind of feel the same way. But to understand the plan, the numbers aren't overly important. And for this video, I am going to give you the basic rundown on how Zheng and Wang trained in the build up to those Paris Olympics. The easiest way to explain this training plan is that it was broken into 3 training blocks, each of approximately 6 weeks, and each culminating in a targeted tournament. The first tournament was the Asia Championships, the next was the Singapore Open, and the third and final one was the Olympic Games. The areas of training for both players centered around 4 key areas. These were technical, tactical, physical, and psychological. Cristian was adamant that all 4 must be integrated and trained simultaneously. However, throughout the 3 training blocks, 1 or 2 of these would become the main focus. I'll explain where each of these fell within the plan in a second, but before I do, there's 2 more key pieces of information I feel I should tell you now, as they will give you even more context to the whole plan. The first was that around 6 months before the Olympic Games, Cristian had access to a device called an Inertial Measurement Unit, or IMU. This is a GPS device that allows for precise tracking of an athlete's movement during training or competition. It can track location, acceleration, orientation, and speed. Cristian used this on Zheng and Huang for every single exercise they did, and he also used it for a number of their tournament matches. Within the tournament match data, they made note of what they called the worst case scenario, or to put it another way, the match they played that stressed Zheng and Huang the most, the match with the highest intensity. That match was their French Open quarterfinal against Dichapon and Sapsiri, where they lost 26-24 in the 3rd game. By compiling this huge database, Cristian was able to compare certain parameters between training and tournament play, and as a result he could know with a crazy level of precision which exercises were closest to resembling tournament conditions. This became absolutely key as the training block progressed, as Cristian knew with exact certainty whether Zheng or Huang were training at below, at, or above match intensity, and could tailor the training accordingly. The other key piece of information you must know before I get into the specific training blocks is the difference between Zheng and Huang as athletes. As you should be aware by now, Cristian understands the importance that training should be individualized. He understands there are some broad aspects that apply to all players, but he is a big believer in training players to what they need specifically. And for Zheng and Huang, he says they couldn't have been more different, not just in what they needed to work on, but how they peaked for tournaments.
For Siwei, he was very easy to go to the peak performance, and also very easy to lose, and Yaqiong was the opposite. She needed a long period to arrive to the peak, and also needed a long period to lose everything she was working.
So with all that information and context, this is how those 3 training blocks were broken down. The first 6 weeks in the build up to the Asia Championships, the main focus was technical and tactical. This meant they focused a lot of their training on technical aspects of footwork, areas specific to them. One example was Wang Yaqiong and her movement across to her forehand, as it seems slower than it should be. After careful analysis, they realised the reason was that she was taking an extra step, and so drills and focus was put towards correcting that. Another area that Wang Yaqiong focused on follows on from what was noticed in that 2023 All England final, namely her speed forward to retrieve Jae's drop shots. Now, this was an area that was worked on before this Olympic prep began, but it had caused a few injury issues for Wang Yaqiong. After careful studying and analysis, Cristian and the other fitness coach realised that whilst Wang Yaqiong's speed and power forward had gone up, her ability to stop hadn't. So throughout this first block, they continued to work on this, and ultimately ended with not just a stronger Wang Yaqiong, but a sturdier one too. It was training like this that took up the main bulk of the first 6 weeks. Of course, as I said before, it wasn't like they didn't train their physical or psychological aspects too, but it was a lower priority. In fact, when it came to the physical side, Cristian used this period as a deload, allowing Zheng and Huang's bodies to recover and be ready for the next 6-week block, which would be the toughest block of the prep. This approach, in principle and in hindsight, is amazing. However, at the time, following the Asia Championships where they lost in the semi-finals to Jae and Yaqiong, it did have the Chinese coaches a little worried.
First block was until the Asian Championships that they lost against with the Koreans, but actually this period we took like the load. We take the training they were doing based very low. We just focus on more technical, tactical things, very low training, and we knew that they will not arrive in the best conditions for this competition, but they agreed to do this way, and then we didn't have any problem. But I remember the coaches they were concerned about say, okay, they are not in the best shape, we need to do something. And then we talk with them and say, okay, this is part of the plan, we know where we are, and we are happy where we are, and this could happen. We have no problem about that.
The Chinese coaches were right to be a little concerned. As for them, it wasn't just that they weren't in great shape, but more the worry of a psychological knock this could have on Zheng and Wang. Sir Seung-jae and Yaqiong were a pair that were becoming troublesome for Zheng and Wang, having defeated them in the World Championship final the year before. They were a pair that many badminton fans and pundits felt could be the pair to upset them in Paris. Any sort of worries over this though were quickly dispelled, as Zheng and Wang had absolute 100% confidence in the plan. And this confidence would massively pay off come the end of the next training block. Following those Asia Championships, the main focus shifted to physical training. This was the toughest block of the entire prep, with many sessions going above match intensity. Also within this block was a big push for strength within the gym. One very interesting part of this training block was that Cristian also implemented a tapering phase. This is where the intensity of the training remains the same, but the overall training load dropped by about 40 to 60%. The reason Cristian did this was because the Singapore Open was going to be their first true test for the Olympics. They targeted that event as a mini Olympics, with the aim to peak for the event and win. Implementing this 2-week taper would act as a test run, so if anything went wrong, they could learn from it. But nothing did. Zheng and Wang won that Singapore Open in amazing style, giving the whole team huge confidence going into the final block. That final training block was all about the psychological, with the main focus around stressing Zheng and Wang as much as possible. They still maintained a high load of physical training in the first 4 weeks. In fact, they increased it during the week of the Indonesia Open, which would explain why they weren't anywhere near their best in the final at that event. But whilst the physical side did remain quite high, the main priority was psychological. The biggest area this was done in was in their match play, where Cristian would put constraints on what they could and couldn't do.
2-3 months before, or maybe 2 months before, we planned like a competition simulation of the Olympics, and then every day during this week they just played matches. The training was just as they are in the Olympics, and every match we put like kind of handicap to put them under pressure.
What helped further develop Zheng and Wang in this period was that throughout this entire Paris prep, they had a psychologist working with them.
And then with the sports psychologist we were discussing, and they didn't know. Before the match, they didn't know the rules. And then we were changing the rules every game to put them in a stress situation. For example, one day you cannot leave. When you serve, you cannot leave. Another day, if you miss the serve, it counts 3 points. Another match, they can get 5 points during the match, and they can get the points when they won. For example, these kind of situations to add a stress or that they can find in this competition and they need to face. And she was helping a lot with these kind of activities.
On top of all these situations, there was one in particular that needed addressing, something that had potential to become worrisome at the Olympics.
During that period, Siwei had some problem with the serve, and he was doing a lot of flick serves because he didn't have confidence with the serve. But we didn't talk directly with him. We knew, and Yaqiong knew also. During this competition week, what we did is we put a rule in a game that they couldn't do a flick serve. And he didn't know the reason. We just constrained the activity to put him in a stress situation, because it's a situation he can find in the Olympic Games, and he needs to solve this situation.
Throughout this block, Zheng and Wang's confidence kept growing, and so too did their physical strength. And with 2 weeks until competition, just as they had done before Singapore, they tapered, reducing the training load, but always maintaining the intensity. By the time they turned up in Paris, they were both 100% ready. The preparation had gone as well as it could have. It was by all intents and purposes the perfect prep. And that perfect prep turned into a perfect performance, as Zheng Siwei and Wang Yaqiong clinched the gold in Paris without dropping a single game. Their redemption of Tokyo was complete, as too was their trophy cabinet. Zheng Siwei and Wang Yaqiong are a special pair. Their achievements, their accolades, and also their personalities are what will set them apart from a number of others. They are without doubt future Hall of Famers, and they will always be in the conversation of greatest mixed pair of all time, likely a lot of people's number one choice. And whilst throughout this video I've explained a lot of what went on behind the scenes, I haven't touched on what makes them special. What do they have that not many others possess? Well, I asked Cristian this, and his answer wasn't surprising.
So beyond their badminton skills, what do you think, in your opinion, made them so successful? Was there were they different from the rest, not in terms of their mental approach, how they were dedicated to training, or anything really that you think made them stand out?
I think it is everything together. Yeah. I think it's the combination of everything. If you see, for example, the World Tour final, in the World Tour finals that they won, when they play against the other Chinese, they lost the first in the group, and they played against them. And I think how they approach this match and the changes that they make about the game, how to play, it's something that they are really good. They can find solutions, and also they study a lot the opponents. They spend a lot of time preparing the matches against the opponent. And I think also when they play, even if they are playing very bad, they can find solutions to win. And they never, it's like there are many matches where they can lose by many points, but they keep going. And there is one moment that I think is when the matches are decided, when it's close to 21, that you can see the difference between the good players and the very good players. And I think in these moments, they are the best.
In a nutshell, it was the basics, the willingness to do everything that is necessary to win. It's what is behind every amazing champion in any sport. That, and of course having an amazing team behind them, a team of which Cristian was undoubtedly a huge part. For me, from talking with Cristian, what stands out isn't just how much attention to detail he puts into everything, but the intrigue he has in finding out what works. He truly wants to get to know every small thing about who he is working with, analysing it all, and then coming up with a plan that is perfectly tailored to that player. He is the definition of an individual approach. Something which amazed me more when he would tell me stories of just how polar opposite the Chinese approach was when he first arrived, and also how it still kind of was when he left. And it's that which led me to a final question I was pondering whilst interviewing him. Now that Cristian is once again not with the Chinese team, how will the Chinese team approach badminton moving forward? Will they take some of Cristian's approach and blend it with their own? For me, it seems like the perfect combination. A combination that would have the whole badminton world quivering in fear. Cristian, though, is dubious, but sees some potential.
This doesn't mean that they are doing changes, but just having me there, also the two Korean coaches that came after, and they never did this. And I think they are making the change, but I feel it is slower that should be, in my opinion, because I feel that many other countries are catching them. The advantage that they had before, they are losing this advantage. If they don't make changes, maybe it's going to be late.
Yeah, but I think I've seen in other sports that the Chinese teams have brought in people from outside to help.
Yeah, in many, because it's like the table tennis and badminton are like the national sports. Yeah, it's like the government sports. Because when we train in the national team, for example, swimming team, they have many foreigners, or other sports they have many, and we were all together. But table tennis, just have two, and badminton, no. Yeah. And these two sports, I think is the most strongest and part of the culture, and I think it's the most difficult to change.
It'll be interesting to see if anything does change, but it sounds like probably.
No, I don't. I was thinking maybe I'm going to be the first one and the last one. I hope not.
This reluctance to change came up in our conversation a few times, and one interesting reason given was that it might stem from how the Chinese juniors are trained. You've likely seen the regimented shadow sessions on social media, and you've also likely heard stories or seen other videos on how hard Chinese children are trained in different sports. Why would it be any different in one of their most successful sports, with a dynasty of over 4 decades? Cristian understands this, and so does Zheng Siwei, and that's why together they are trying to initiate more change and potentially create an even brighter future for Chinese badminton.
I'm doing a project in China with Zheng Siwei. We are doing,
Nice.
Yeah, we are trying to build it's kind of badminton academy, but not only the academy. It's more like creating a system, trying to change the system from the roots, from the beginning, from the young kids, the way they train, and try to educate parents and the kids and everything. And then also like having the possibility to bring international players there, to have a base where the people can train. Yeah, we have been working for many months. It's gonna be in the next month's opening, I think, in 2-3 months.
Whereabouts in China is that been based?
Sorry?
Whereabouts in China is that based? Or is that
Hangzhou is his hometown.
Oh, Hangzhou, okay.
Yeah.
That sounds really good. I mean, hopefully, like you said, the reason this is difficult to change is because the way the children...
Exactly, and he always had very clear he doesn't want to be part of the system because he worked with me many years. Is because he was thinking different of the rest, and then he brings this mentality everywhere. He tries in the way of connection between the Western and the Chinese culture and bringing together the good things of both sides and try to build something from there.
I want to finish this video by saying a massive thank you to Cristian Luque. Without him, this video would have not been possible. He was not only more than happy to give up so much of his time to be interviewed by me and send me photos, videos and the Paris plan, but he was also more than willing to answer my numerous follow-up questions, often with painstaking detail. Honestly, his interview alone was enough to make this a good video, but with all the additional information he gave, he's made it a fantastic one. And so once again, thank you, Cristian. If you're interested in watching the entire interview, then I will give an update on that in due course, as it relates to a direction I want to take the channel, so watch out for that. All that's now left for me to say is thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.